Hello, and welcome to IRI Growth Insights, featuring IRI thought leaders, industry partners, and guests. For more than 40 years, IRI has been known for its invaluable data, but these podcasts delve into the insights the data reveal to fuel market disruption and market growth for those in the CPG, retail, healthcare, and media markets. Coming to you from IRI's corporate headquarters in Chicago.
Good day, everybody. My name is Larry Levin, part of the IRI Thought Leadership team. And today it is my absolute privilege and honor to spend a little bit of time talking to truly one of the industry's foremost authorities on all things sustainability, around the sustainability agenda. My partner and truly great friend, Randi Kronthal-Sacco, joins us today. She is part of the New York University Center for Sustainable Business. Randi, you've had a storied career in CPG, so why don't you share with the audience a little bit about your experiences from your days at Kraft to J&J to what you do with the NYU Center for Sustainable Business. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, and I'm delighted to be here. By way of background, I am at Stern's Center for Sustainable Business, which is an academic center within NYU's Business School, whose mission it is to continue to prove that sustainable business is good business. My background is in consumer packaged goods. I started at Kraft in a year that I won't say, but let's just call it the last century. I worked for 8 years at Kraft Foods in fun businesses like Jell-O, where I was involved in the Jell-O gelatin shots, which I'm sure many of you know that is, as well as integral to the launch of Honey Bunches of Oats, which I know is one of Larry's favorite cereals, and probably one of the bigger successes for Kraft or Post. From Kraft, I then moved to Johnson & Johnson, running the global women's health business and then the global baby business. My interest in sustainability really started coincident with having children, but also running the global baby business. And what we found is that there's this universal insight that Johnson & Johnson baby business had, which was having a baby changes everything. And absolutely, it changes how parents view the world that their children will inherit, and drives interest in sustainability in a way that they had not before. So had they been kind of tree huggers before, they're even more so. And had they been uninterested or disinterested in the planet and the planet's well-being, they certainly were now when they think about their children. And so when I had the opportunity to join Stern and work on sustainability issues, I jumped at it. And I'll let you ask the next question, Larry.
Well, that's great, Randi. It's funny that you talk about tree huggers and millennials, because I'm actually doing this podcast from our grandchildren's house in Houston, and there are no printers here because they don't want to waste paper. So everything here is done electronically. It's quite interesting and very reflective, I think, of today's society. So, Randi, let's talk a little bit about the business, the importance of sustainability in the marketplace. I know in the past you've talked, I believe, that about 17% of CPG sales are coming from sustainably marketed products. Can you talk a little bit about NYU's platform and how you've been able to come up with that stat, and then the impact that sustainably marketed products have had in CPG?
Absolutely. When I joined about 5 years ago, as I said, I was interested in sustainability. And as a CPG marketer, I was particularly interested in what the share of sustainable products were in CPG. I certainly knew what it was in the baby business and the women's health business, but not CPG at large. And despite lots of research and looking at academic journals and management consulting journals and some of the big data houses, there was a dearth of data on actual sustainability marketed product purchases. And because of that, I partnered with you and IRI to look at and have a lovely relationship to look at actual purchases. And we did find out when you and I started, we found that sustainably marketed products were about 13% of the category in 2013. In 2020, it was about 17% of the category. And that is lower than what we had hoped. But differentially contributed, thanks to a question you asked, to the growth of CPG. So in 2019, that's 16% at the time, delivered over half a CPG growth. So 16% share delivered 55% of the growth of CPG, which was unheard of. As you all know who are listening, you typically see share of market and share of growth be somewhat similar, and this was 3-4 times as large. And we were worried during the pandemic that people would cede interest in sustainably marketed products as they focused on security, just buying products because there was a dearth of products, and that wasn't to be the case. What actually grew another percentage point. And while I'm looking at data this year to report on 2021, I think we're going to be pleased to see another big step up in sustainably marketed purchases.
Well, that's great to know. I work quite a bit with Joan Driggs from our thought leadership team as well, and she and I are regularly looking at the impact of new product innovation. And this past year, I think we identified about 35 of our new product pace setters were plant-based. We have another strong showing among non-GMO. What are some of the most important areas of growth within the sustainability agenda?
Yeah, so it really is category dependent. So to the extent that you're in paper products, as you talk about absence of a printer and paper, those categories have good forestry management certifications, FSC being the most pristine, then which is Forestry Stewardship Council. In food, it tends to be organic and non-GMO. The emergence of plant-based, as you are correctly bringing up, the emergence of B Corp, which is for those who don't know about B Corp, it's a third-party certification for companies that do good. And so in addition to being incorporated, a B Corp is one step further, where a third party comes in and makes sure that you are delivering against your sustainability commitments, very similar to LEED buildings, if LEED, for those of you who know that. So you're seeing an emergence of B Corp, particularly in some of the dairy categories. And the other thing that's happening is the emergence of carbon labeling. So you're seeing many companies, Procter, Church & Dwight, et cetera, making claims about the fact that these products either are carbon neutral or are being made with 100% renewable energy.
That's great. I know you guys have done a lot of research around willingness to pay for sustainable products, and some of the consumer data suggests that people are willing to pay between 5 and 10%. But what have you seen in your research about premiumization around sustainable products?
Yeah, absolutely. Sustainable products are being priced at a premium. What we saw across the board, and we'll be reporting again early next year on pricing, is that sustainably marketed products on average have about a 40% premium to their conventional counterparts, but it varies a lot by category, anywhere from 3% premium to 150% in carbonated beverage. And clearly, those price premiums are above and beyond the raw material cost increases. So it's a very lovely category to invest in, subcategories to invest in, because sustainably marketed products do see a premium. They also are far less price sensitive. So they operate more like luxury goods than, so people, you can continue, they're relatively inelastic. You can continue to take price without seeing the the impact on volume that you would see on conventionally marketed products. It'll be interesting to look at it this year because conventionally marketed products across the board, CPG has taken price given the supply chain challenges, and it'll be interesting to see if the delta between sustainably marketed products and conventionally marketed products shrink to be seen next year.
Yeah, because it's interesting. It will be fascinating to see if the consumer willingness to pay 5 to 10% more actually translates to what the gap is, or if they really are paying 2 to 3 times that perceived number that they're paying. So it'll be fascinating to look. What surprised you most about companies' sustainability agenda?
Impressed me as much? No,
surprised you most. What surprised you most about companies' sustainability agenda?
I believe that there is a huge opportunity for companies to more aggressively communicate their sustainability agenda to consumers. So it surprises me that big companies that we all know, multinational companies, have pretty aggressive sustainability agendas, whether it's regenerative agriculture, which is a new thing that's emerging, or good sustainability purchases. Now, most RFPs for all raw materials include a sustainability requirement before big companies engage with the raw material suppliers, but they don't always communicate these benefits to consumers. So that is one thing that definitely surprises me, that they have these pretty aggressive sustainability agendas and don't communicate that to the consumer. The other thing I think that's surprising me and a bit disappointing is that there is a reluctance for some big companies to change their legacy products and to more sustainable raw material purchases. So I think there's a hesitancy to alienate any consumers and change the products, but to ones that have more sustainable ingredients. But my feeling is, if they don't, they will perish. So adapt, perish.
Yeah, that's interesting. Social media obviously plays an important role in so many consumer areas. How has social media played a role in influencing consumers and in sustainability? And are there any key influencers in this agenda that companies are really gravitating toward?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing on social media is that companies are using it to tell their story, as that is the new area that for marketing of products. But the other thing that's happening is there's pretty aggressive boycotts of companies that are not good actors. And so you have, as I'm sure all of you have seen, when companies are engaging in child labor and there is some visibility around that, even if they're unknowingly using child labor in in parts of their supply chain, if that is made aware by media, that there is a boycott. And so consumers are advocating for more sustainable practices, and you will see social media backlash if you aren't a good actor.
So you talked before about the impact of carbon footprint. Can you talk a little bit about the financial impact and also some of the processes that companies are employing to maximize their carbon footprint?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is an emerging area, and I'm not sure I'm the most skilled to speak to it, but definitely around renewable energy, circular economy. Everybody's looking for new innovations that are less carbon intensive. So waterless options for many of the new products, because shipping water is quite expensive. So there's kind of this innovation strand as well. Yes.
It's interesting. You talk about shipping water, and shipping in general has obviously become a major opportunity for consumer packaged goods companies because of e-commerce. Can you talk a little bit about what you've seen from an e-commerce platform and the impact positively or negatively with sustainability?
Yeah, I think for those of you who are shopping on e-commerce, there is some positives, obviously, in terms of convenience and some negatives. And the negatives really are around the returns. So, the desire to have things immediately. So most e-commerce companies allow you to ship in a fashion or deliver to you in a fashion that's less carbon intensive. Please click on that as a way to reduce your personal carbon footprint. The whole returns of product make it very carbon intensive as well, because there's a whole pick up and take back to the company that isn't there often when you're just buying yourself and not having to worry about purchasing the wrong size and sending it back. And people do object to the amount of packaging that's being that the products are being delivered in. There is a company called Loop that's partnering with many of the large CPGs where they're actually going to deliver you product, you're going to use it, and then pick it up and refill. And so we'll see how. I know they partner with Procter and a couple other big companies, and we'll see how that goes and whether people are willing to adopt more sustainable practices on that. It's an interesting time to have this conversation, Larry, because right now there's COP happening, which is the Global Climate Summit in Europe. And many polls have come out where it's very clear for the first time ever, environmental concerns top all global concerns. And consumers do believe that they've been personally impacted by these environmental issues in a way that they had not been in the past. But they're struggling with how to, besides with government intervention, how to personally make changes. Being a conscious consumer and being a smart shopper, in my opinion, is the best way to do that.
That's great. Where do you see the CPG industry standing in terms of its impact and sustainability compared to areas like automotive or other technology areas? How do you see CPG stacking up?
Yeah, so CPG is probably in the middle, but it's a bellwether indicator because it is fast-moving consumer goods. So the fact that sustainably marketed products are growing significantly makes me optimistic about the future. Automotive is probably the most progressive, as many of the companies have, even as large as General Motors, Volvo, certainly with Tesla, with the delivery of 100,000 Tesla cars or something like that to Hertz. Automotive has made a big commitment. Oil and gas, perhaps less so. Oh, sorry, we could also talk about the apparel company. Fast fashion is not a good thing for the environment, but this whole emergence of renewables and rejuvenation of materials and repurchasing of secondhand products purchasing of secondhand products, all that puts apparel a little further up on the list.
So one of the things I wanted to talk about, Randi, is you and I look at generations and the impact that generational attitudes have around sustainability. And millennials certainly are ahead of boomers and Gen Xers in terms of their passion. But what struck both of us, I think, in our conversations, is that there's still a lot of headroom for millennials to further the agenda. I think some of the stats we've seen is that 65% of millennials are likely to use reusable water bottles, as an example. What needs to happen to really get millennials even more focused on the sustainability agenda?
I think both retailers and manufacturers need to be more aggressive in the communication of their sustainability benefits. And what we're seeing is that many retailers, for example, like Amazon and Walmart and Sephora, are starting to highlight the sustainability benefits of each individual product. So Amazon now has Climate Pledge Friendly on many of their SKUs that they offer, and they are going to prioritize the more sustainable option. Retailers like Walmart have made similar commitments. And so that will allow consumers to be more aware of the impact of their choices. And so that's one. And retailers also should be working with manufacturers like Walmart did with Procter years ago, with the reduction in size of detergent bottles and doing more concentrated, having more concentrated offerings. Manufacturers like Unilever have done an amazing job introducing products that are more sustainable. So I would say retailers play a role, manufacturers should be communicating as well. But I think it's all around communication so that these millennials who do care and Gen Zs who do care and are the future consumer have an easier time figuring out which is the more sustainable choice and which manufacturer is the better actor.
Have you seen over the last 6 or 7 years you've been involved with the Center for Sustainable Business and a lot of the students, have you seen a more informed student coming in now with a sustainable agenda compared to a couple of years ago? And how has it changed?
Great question. Absolutely. And NYU Business School is a finance-driven business school, and most of the individuals who come or students who come to NYU Business School want to go into investment banking and make private equity and make a ton of money. And so the fact that they are now who prioritize money over anything, they are expressing a need to be fulfilled and do good and become. And if they don't become an entrepreneur around sustainability, they certainly want to become an intrapreneur within a company to ensure more sustainable agendas. They also are making decisions based on companies that are good actors. If a company is not considered, so Patagonia, for instance, everyone wants to go to Patagonia. They're a good actor. I won't mention those companies that aren't good actors, but we do get pushback that those companies that aren't doing good, in addition to doing well, are less appealing. And I would also say that we are seeing companies, when they come to pitch to the students, discuss their sustainability efforts, whether it's sustainable finance or their internal sustainability efforts, to the students as a way to make themselves more attractive to these students. There is such as we've all read, a need to hire the best and the brightest, and there's such an supply of jobs. So you can get a job now if you want. And so to get the best and the brightest, you really have to have the best of everything, including a sustainability agenda within your company.
I love what you just said, because it's so interesting that it's not just that the student has to sell his or herself to the company to be part of the team, but the company really has to sell itself to the student, because there are plenty of choices for employment. And those that with a better sustainability agenda may have a slight edge against those that don't. So really fascinating. Randi, just one final question before we wrap up today's discussion. You talked before about, I think you called it regenerative farming and the impact that's going to have. Talk to the audience a little bit about that. And are there other evolving innovations in sustainability that you see as really critical over the next 4 to 5 years?
Yeah, so regenerative farming is, just as best as I can explain it, is farming in a way that ensures that the farm stays sustainable. Also, farming is a great way, if you do it correctly, as a carbon capture. We want to make sure that the farms and our food supply will sustain for our children and our children's children. And so there's ways to farm that don't desecrate the land. There's going to be a demand on fresh water. Agriculture uses more water than any other industry. Tech as well, actually, is a big industry that's heavily water focused. And so you want to make sure that you're a good steward of the water. All that is as part of regenerative agriculture. Many of the large companies, CPG companies, anybody who's delivering food to consumers are starting to engage in this regenerative agriculture. They're not communicating. It's so novel. It's not being communicated in a big way to consumers. And I think we have to figure out how best to communicate it so that consumers understand it. It's not an easy concept, but it is something that's emerging in a big way. And I think that will be our future. That's probably the biggest change that I'm hearing about.
That's interesting you say that, because as you were talking, I was wondering not just about a communication platform, but how will eventually farmers and manufacturers quantify the perceptual impact and the financial impact of regenerative farming. So it will be fascinating to watch this. Randi, I can't thank you enough on behalf of IRI's thought leadership team, and our partnership is something that we treasure, and you're a great partner. I'm looking forward to the 2022 story, and hopefully we'll kick that off at IRI's upcoming summit sometime next spring. So on behalf of everybody at IRI, thank you so much again for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day, Randi.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you for listening. Please become a subscriber and let us know what you want to learn more about. We'll serve it up in a future IRI Growth Insights episode. Look for us wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to review IRI Growth Insights. Also, visit us on the web at iriworldwide.com and connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn.